Hi, everybody. Thank you, Rich. I'm so excited to be crafting with all of you today and making some fun little Valentine ornaments. These are so cute, whether you have a Valentine tree that you decorate or you can hang them from a doorknob. They can also just hang on the wall. You can do longer strings or even string multiple together to make a long garland. So there's countless options to do with these fun little guys, and they're super easy to make, which is also great. So let's go through all of our supplies. If you haven't gathered them yet, you can run around and get them. So first, we are using our Creatology Chenille stems. You also might know them as fuzzy sticks or pipe cleaners. I pulled out some of my favorite Valentine colors here, but you can use any color that you want. And you're going to be using like probably one full stem per ornament. You will trim them down, but this, I have like a couple different sizes here. This is like a full pipe cleaner. This one's obviously smaller, but not quite small enough to get two out of one. So just keep that in mind. If you want to make multiple, you're going to need multiple Chenille stems. And you can use any colors that you want, of course. In my mega pack here from Creatology, there's tons of different full rainbow colors. But you can also use the Creatology metallic ones if you want, or if you have other pastel packs. You also don't have to make them in traditional Valentine colors. As you know, the best part of crafting is you get to do it yourself and you can get creative. And then we're going to be using beads. So I've got this Creatology Friendship bead kit, and we're going to be using primarily these little plastic beads that will slide onto the pipe cleaners really easily. But again, any beads that you have will work. I also have some little star beads that are really cute from Creatology. And then we're going to be using the Friendship Bracelet Kit Floss. So I've got some of the embroidery floss here, pulled out in some shades of pink as well. And lastly, a pair of scissors. And so I think that's it. Basically, you need some Chenille stems and some beads, and we're ready to go. So let me flip my camera around. You guys can see my hands, and we can get started. As Rich mentioned at the beginning, of course, if you have any questions, if you maybe don't have a supply that you see here and you want an alternative, let me know in the Q&A, and we can give you guys some advice. All right, so our first step is taking any of your Chenille stems here. Chenille stems are so fun if you're not familiar. You probably are if you are a Creatology fan, as I am. But what they really are is a little piece of wire inside, and then it is wrapped in this little fuzzy fabric chenille. And so they can be bent into a billion different shapes because they are wire. So you can see as I bend it in half, it stays that way. You can make them into little zigzag shapes. You can coil them around your finger or a pencil. So there's countless things you can do with them. Today, we are going to be bending them into a heart shape. So to start, we're going to start basically bending them in half. So I'm going to kind of make a little U shape and get my ends to meet. I'm going to hold that with one hand. And then I'm going to pull this down to make, basically fold it on itself, make a little bended point there. And then we're going to add beads on top. So because our heart shapes are rounded here, we aren't doing like strong folds in those places. We are going to eventually bend this into a heart shape. As you can see, pretty easy to do, but we're going to put beads on it first. If you also bend your Chenille stem and you don't like it, you can bend it back out. So if you aren't happy with your first little crease there, just undo it and you can do it over and over again. And again, depending on what kind of beads you might be using at home, you can use all sorts of different sizes. As you can see, the little Chenille stem here, it's not super thin, but the wire itself is really thin and all of the little fuzzy part kind of fades away as you can smush it through a bead. So this sort of style bead usually works about the best, but I was able to get some of these smaller ones on here. You can see little teeny beads. Even these ones that are like a little flat bead, those can all go on as well. Of course, these are much thinner, so they're not going to take up as much space on your heart, which means you'll need a lot more of them. But those you can squeeze on. So we're going to start by putting a bead on. Just going to push it right onto my Chenille stem. You can see it there at the bottom. And then you can make a pattern if you want. You can just go wild and you can do any color combos that you might want to do. If you want to make a pattern, what we're going to do is start with a pink, like iridescent bead. And then I have a solid pink and then a purple iridescent bead. And then I'm going to do a solid purple bead. And now to make a pattern, we're going to follow this exact same color combo again. So you start at the bottom, and I'm going to do an iridescent pink. And then a solid pink. And then iridescent purple. And a solid purple. And that's how you build a pattern, is by repeating the same color combos over and over again. Again, you don't have to do them as a pattern. That sometimes gives a little bit of balance to any sort of like composition that you're creating, but you can also just do any color combo, and that is equally as fun and as beautiful. And so we're going to go up the whole, most of this whole side here. See, we're adding more and more beads. And then I can flip it over. I can add more on the other side. And because this is our pattern, if I want to continue the pattern onto the other side, then I'm going to start from the purple one. Since I have a iridescent pink here, what comes after my iridescent pink is my solid purple, so that I can continue that going up the other direction. And what's fun about beading using the Chenille stem instead of just thread or a needle is that it's very easy for all ages. So no matter what age you might be, or if this is your first time playing with beads or practicing with beads, it's pretty quick to be able to thread them on versus working with maybe like the plastic needles, and those you can kind of work your way up. Because you can make jewelry the same way. You could easily bend this into a little bracelet or add multiple Chenille stems together to make a necklace. Maybe we need to do a class like that next time together. Okay, so you can see here on my Chenille stem, I've got most of this covered. There's about maybe 2 inches left. We can keep going, or we can bend this one into a heart. And so what we want to do is make sure you leave a little bit of your Chenille stem exposed so we can twist it together at the end to seal it. So what we're going to do is basically cross over the two pieces of chenille stem. You want to get as close to your beads as possible. And then you're going to twist those together. And then we can fold this into heart. And I'm just kind of manipulating the wire that's inside to smush it into a heart shape. Then using my scissors, I'm just going to trim off the extra. And there you have your first little beaded heart. You can kind of mess with it a little bit if you want it to be like a longer heart. You can do that. You can bend it until you're happy with the shape of it. But look how easy. You just made your first beaded ornament in a matter of mere minutes. So the next step, we're going to make a few of these, of course. So you guys can see a couple different beading styles. We can do one with like a little ornament within an ornament, which is always fun. I think these are really cute little ideas for even like friendship, Valentine's. You can make one for everyone in your class. So to turn it into a little ornament now, we're going to need to add a little hanger. And that's what we're going to use our embroidery floss for. So I'm going to cut off like 6 to 8 inches of thread. And there's a couple different options you can do here. Either you can have your hanger coming right out of the center where the point of your heart is, or if you want it to hang at a little bit of an angle like this, you can do it onto the side of it as well. But one of my favorite ways to do this is you're going to fold your thread in half. And I'm going to pick this up and the little looped side of my thread. I'm going to go into the arch of my heart. So now I've got the loop side on one side and my two tails on the other. I'm going to put my two tails into the loop and pull it tight. And then just kind of get it in between two beads. And there you go. You just have tie a knot on the other end. We'll do that again. So if you missed it, don't worry. I'm going to tie a little knot on the other side here. And now you've got a little hanger here ready to go. You can always add an extra little bead on there if you want to, anything like that. But that's going to be your basic little heart. And then you can do this over and over again. So let's do another one together here. I'm going to take one of these metallic Chenille stems. And again, we're going to fold it in half to start. I like to start so that we have that nice little point at the bottom to make sure that you get a crisp point on your heart. So I'm going to take both ends of my Chenille stem. I'm going to meet those together. I'm going to hold that with one hand. With the other hand, I'm going to pull this side down and squeeze it. Just pinch it. And then you have two sides there. Like a big V for Valentine's Day. And then we can start adding our beads onto our stem. And again, you can mix and match any colors that you want. You can do, let's see if these gold ones fit on here. They should. So you can see that even though this is a much smaller bead than these larger ones that we used originally, it kind of squeezes the Chenille little fringe, but that's just fine. You can squeeze that all the way down. And then you can add these smaller little pink ones. You can also leave space, especially if you like the color of your little Chenille stem, like this little metallic. You could leave a little gap in between your beads even. And that's pretty fun. It gives it a little extra texture in there. And that's what's kind of fun about mixing and matching your different bead styles and doing things like that, is that you get all sorts, oh, keep dropping this one, all sorts of different looks at the end of them. So each one you make will be totally unique. And if you're struggling at all at home, if you feel like you can't get the smaller beads on, just switch it to a larger bead. But you can also take your time and just practice a little bit. You just want to line up the little hole with the center wire. And sometimes it takes a minute to see that wire mixed in with all of your little fringe here, but just look for that little hard wire, line up. Once you get it into the bead of the little hole in the bead, it's easy, then you can just string it right down. You can see all the way down here. So I've got a gold bead, then a pink bead, then a gold bead, but I've left a little gap in between each one so that a little bit of my metallic fringe is sticking out and it almost acts as another bead in between. It gives it a different texture. So just another optional style for you. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And then just remember, as you get to the top here, if you want to vary your sizes of hearts, which is great if you're making multiple, just want to make sure that you do leave at least like this much at the top. Like you want to be able to just have enough that you can twist your ends together. So about like 1/2 inch at the top on both sides to make sure that they can connect. Okay, so now that the two ends of mine just about even, you can always put them together. I'm going to add one more little bead on this side to even them out. And the goal of having them even is so that the arches on your hearts are even on both sides. If you want to do more of like an abstract looking heart where one side has a larger arch than the other, then you'd want to have them asymmetrical so that one side was tall and the other side was short with your beads. You could still meet them and have them bend, and you'd have two different size arches. But if you want them to be the same, you want to have your beads kind of line up. And then we're going to cross over our two little tails here of our chenille stem. And I'm going to give them a little twist right where the beads meet. And twist them like 2 or 3 times to make sure it's nice and secure. And then kind of push it down in the middle here. And then you can kind of start to bend it. And push the center down toward your little point. And then you can kind of flatten it out and get those to all be nice and even. Again, if you aren't happy with your heart, if you're like, oh no, I bent it, it's in a funky shape, just pull it apart. You could easily stretch it back out and do it again. Pull this little X point down to the point, and then you can kind of start to shape your two heart arches. How cute. And then you can trim off the extra. There you have another cute little heart. This one with the smaller beads feels much more delicate than this one here, and different color combos. You can see you've got endless possibilities. And then we can add onto our heart by putting on a little hanger. Because you can, like I said, you can hang it in 1,000 different ways. You can also hang it off of a card if you wanted to, and make it a little Valentine gift. Okay, so to do our little hanger again here, we are going to do, this little knot is technically called a lark's head knot, and use it in a lot of macrame and different things like that, but it's also very simple. So take your little piece of twine or floss, you're gonna fold it in half. I'm gonna pick it up from this little looped side. So now I'm gonna put the loop into the arch of my heart. So now I've got the loop on one side and the tails on the other side. Got the two little tails of my thread here. And then I'm going to put the two tails into the loop and then pull that tight. And then I just want to make sure this little thread stays on one side of the bead. And then from here, if you wanted to, you could add a little bead on here. Maybe you want to do extra, see if we can string these on here. Sometimes you twist the ends of your thread and make them thinner to go into this little teeny little bead. You can also trim the edges. Well, we can do one little thread. Got one side on there. And if you want to keep that little bead down close to the heart, I'm going to tie a little knot around it. So getting close to the end of my bead here, I'm going to tie a little knot right above the little star bead we just added. And before I pull it tight, I'm just going to try to pull with the other hand, pull that little loop knot as close to the heart, the little star, and then that will lock it in place there. And then do the same thing on the other side to tie a knot. So I'm going to make a little loop and then pull these two little tails underneath and through the loop, and then pull that tight. And there you have another adorable little ornament heart ready to go. Again, if you wanted to make these into a garland instead, or you didn't want to hang them for whatever reason, you would just don't add the little extra hanger onto the heart, and you can make them in 1,000 ways to put on cards or little notes or things like that as well. Okay, let's see here. If we make another one here, that white's not very easy to see. Okay, so I'm going to take my Chenille stem here. Again, both points are going to meet. And then I'm going to bend the little loop portion onto itself to make a little point. And once you have your V, you go ahead and start loading it up with different beads. You can use all different colors on here. You can even use these little flat seed beads. The little red's hard to see on the red, but those fit on there nicely as well. And you can keep making patterns as you want to, or again, just stringing any colors that you want. Maybe you want to do a full rainbow. You can see these little flat beads that are much smaller. And so they're really cute on there, but they take up a lot less space than like these little plastic beads. So just mix and match different ones though. Kind of make a nice little color gap in between doing like a black and white. And as you're watching, if you want to do the same pattern, if you like that, I'm doing a white plastic bead followed by a black plastic bead. And then I've got three little flat beads in between. So I've got a red, pink, red, and then go back into a white, black, red, pink, red. And on this other side, I just want it to follow the exact same. So instead of continuing the pattern, I'm going to mirror it. So I'm going to continue on this other side, start with white and then black and then red, pink, red again. We're getting even there. You can see we're going to continue the pattern one more time here. Okay, so now that both of my sides here are even, line them up. Look how cute that little pattern is. So we're going to, again, make this into a little heart now. So we're going to take our two ends, we're going to cross them over at the top. And then close to the beads, you want to keep that little cross close to the beads, little X, and then twist it together. And then I kind of like to dip this down and then push it down toward your point. If you want to add a little bead inside, you can do that too. You can have extra beads, or at the end, we can also hang like a little charm, which is very cute. So to do that, I'm still going to trim off my excess here. And sometimes cutting the chenille stem can be the hardest part of this craft. When you're working with the chenille stems, they do have the wire center. My tip is always to pull your stem as close to your handle as possible. So open up your scissors as wide as you can, and then push your chenille stem all the way in as close to the handle as you can, and then smush down. Anytime you can do that, most of the pressure of your scissors is going to come closest to your hand. Sometimes if you just do it on the end, it'll just kind of be either really hard, or sometimes it will even just bend in your scissors, or like separate your scissors a little bit. And then that's very frustrating. So put it all the way in to the mouth of your scissors and then press down. And it should snip right off. Okay, so now we've got another cutie little heart there. We want to add a little charm. I'm going to cut off like 6 to 8 inches again. And then what we can do is we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do this twice. So I'm going to pull one side with my little loop on one side, and I'm going to grab both those little tails. I'm going to pull this tight. And then you can string on a little bead if you want to. And I can even have this little bead kind of go right over where my little chenille stem holder is, where we put that little X to lock it in place. And then with my little ends here, I'm going to thread on my little charm, and then we're going to tie this on. So just like a traditional knot, you've got 2 threads here. I'm going to cross them over and then take one tail underneath into the loop and tie that on. And I'm going to do that one more time, double knot, just to make sure it's nice and secure. So we're going to cross over the 2 tails, pull one in under and through the loop. And then I'm going to trim off the extra. And then there you have a cute little charm inside. So you've got a little ornament within your ornament. And you can still add a secondary one here. So again, pull off a couple inches of your thread, and we can add a secondary little hanger for it. So I'm going to do my little loop through one side, grab those two little tails and pull it tight. And then tie a little knot on the opposite side. Pull that tight. And then snip it off. And there you have a whole nother little charm and little ornament ready to go. And with that, you guys can see all these different options you can make over and over again, depending on which style is your favorite. We've got thin and delicate, or we've got cute and teeny. We've got charms, and this one's like feels more modern with a black and white look. So you can do countless different styles, all using really just one bead kit. And so you can make them over and over again and hopefully give them to everyone that you want to for Valentine's Day. So I hope that you all had just as much fun as I did. Thanks so much for crafting with me and with Michaels, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.